Now let's head into the papers now, see what the headlines are. And I have joining me on Skype the CEO, CKN News, Kehinde Nwandu. Chris, good morning. It's good to have you join me this morning.
Thank you, Mike. It's nice to have you here.
All right,
Thank God
great.
It's Friday.
Great. Thank God it's Friday. All right, let's start with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Governors defy experts' warning, lift ban on worship centers. That's what you see. Avoid congregation to witness another Salah. Federal government is saying this. And GNI advises Muslims to observe Eid at home and churches to resume on Sunday. All right, you find all this on the front page of the Daily Trust, and certainly my guests would like to talk about this when we open the discussions. News Direct is next, and it's on COVID-19, Nigeria heading towards economy recession. The finance minister is saying this, and economy could shrink as much as minus 8.9% in 2020. That's really a scary figure. And states to get $1.5 billion from World Bank. That's a bailout. Okay, from News Direct, let's go to Daily Times. And Daily Times says Nigeria's economy heading towards a recession. Ahmed is saying this, says COVID-19 pandemic has negatively impacted crude oil prices and Federation's revenues. States to get 1.5 billion naira from World Bank on economic stimulus to cushion impact of pandemic. All that is there on the front page of the Daily Times. Leadership newspaper is next now. Eid al-Fitr. Federal government states at loggerheads over opening of prayer grounds, and states endangering the aged, the sick, others, the PTF is saying, and they insist chloroquine not certified for COVID-19 treatment. And GNI backs Sultan, others Muslims to pray at home, or asks Muslim rather. 50% of coronavirus deaths occur at home, says Ehanire. That's the Minister of Health. Now, from the Leadership newspaper, let's go to the National Economy. National Economy says COVID-19 states to share World Bank's 540 billion naira fiscal relief package. Recession inevitable. Federal government is saying this, and the NEC to work with COVID-19 PTF on reopening of economy. All right, that's the National Economy. Blueprint is next now, and is on Eid al-Fitr, conflicting signals over mode of worship. The NSCIA, as the National Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, and the JNI order prayer at home. Go home after 1 hour, or 1 hour prayer. Ganduje, the governor of Kano State, is saying this. Kano, Jigawa, Bauchi, Yobe, Gombe, Borno, others differ. And prayers to be observed within 30 minutes. Kaduna to strictly enforce lockdown. That's the Blueprint newspaper. And the way the Blueprint picks it, certainly, let's look at this issue. Chris, let me bring you in here. It's quite interesting from the back door, if you have to put it that way, that we're having conflicting figures. The Nigeria Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, that is the highest authority, Islamic authority in Nigeria, is giving a benchmark and a mode of operation. But governors that are politicians who are not religious leaders have a differing instruction to their indigents. What do you make of this?
Mike, indeed, a trying time. Trying time indeed. And it's quite unfortunate. If the Sultan of Sokoto, who is the supreme leader of Muslims in Nigeria, came up with a directive that Muslims should stay at home and pray, and the Supreme Council of Nigeria also came out to also back the Sultan. The GNI also backed the Sultan. And for the governors to come out to say, no, we will not adhere to that, and informing the indigenous to come out en masse to attend prayers, deputy prayer, that is very, very unfortunate. It only goes to show, give some signals, terrible signals to people that what we're having, the pandemic that is ravaging across the globe, is just a mirage. And with that kind of statement, with that kind of directive from the governors, then whatever effort the NCDC, the Federal Ministry of Health, the various agencies of government, and even some state governments have been doing has been thrown to the trash bin. What the governors are only trying to do or trying to say is that they don't believe in what is going on, and that itself is quite unfortunate. And it is rather unfortunate because the governor should know better. They are the head, they are the security heads, so as to be for the states. They are also supposed to take care of the welfare of the people. So anything that will cause harm to anybody within their state should be their paramount, and not just for selfish. I've seen the reasons given by the governors, but those are not tenable. For goodness sake, I will tell you for free that in Mecca, which is the main hub of Islam in the whole world, the main mosque is being shut. There is a total lockdown by the government to prevent people from going to mosque. So if we could have that in Mecca and Medina, I don't see why we can be crying more than the bereaved in Nigeria. Can we be more Catholic than people? Definitely not. So it's rather unfortunate. And not just the northern governors, also some states in the south, also some southeast, have also tried to open up their states, asking worshippers to go to churches on Sunday and the rest of them. I think that come from NCDC and the federal government, federal ministry of health, we should be able to follow the protocols of this. And with time, we get it right, definitely able to be back to normal. But for now, I think it's a very, very good advice for us.
Yes. Now, under the law, certainly the states have their level of rights and have their level of powers to exercise within their domains. But when the federal government is issuing a partial restriction across the country, and this, in the next few days, it still falls within the time frame of partial restriction by the federal government, what do you foresee going forward? Do you see a major clash?
Well, as a student of law, I know that we have the exclusive list. We have the exclusive list, which is the federal government. We also have where the states also have their own rights, as it were. Then we also have another where the federal government and the states also have joint rights on issues. But this is not just about being exclusive. This is common sense. The federal government said that. You don't even need the federal government to say that. Mike, you don't need to tell me as an individual. I don't need to wait for the state government to tell me that I should use my mask, wash my hands, use sanitizers, and I should try to keep some level of distance and the rest of them. If I like myself and if I love myself, which should be common sense, then I should be able to do that. So for the state government, I just think that they're just being political. And this is not just about politics. We cannot be playing politics with the health of the people. We cannot be playing politics with people. With all the necessary palliative that they're supposed to give to their citizens and their people. Have they been doing that? Have they been able to reach out to people to make sure that the poorest of the poor within their communities are being taken care of? What have they done? In terms of security, what have they done? So just open up the space for people to just go and pray. Is it not so ridiculous that the governor said that people should just pray for 1 hour and go home? Are you telling me that within that 1 hour, the virus, the COVID-19 will just sleep, go to bed and rest, waiting for people to finish the prayer within 1 hour, then immediately they leave, they comes back? No, it doesn't make any sense. Some people say 30 minutes. Is it not so ridiculous? It's so fun indeed.
Now, when it comes to disagreement between governors and the president, or the governor or governments at the state level and at the federal level, Nigeria is not the first, because even in the United States, there are disagreements between governors and the federal government as to what time and the mode of reopening the states for normal activities. But what do you think is putting governors under pressure to reopen their economies when they know, when they are the leaders, they have access to information, especially some of the states in the north where we have heard of some strange deaths that some have not been ascertained what they really are?
It is, Mike, is the right of the governors. They are the chief executive of the state. They decide what happens in their state, despite whatever the president says. They are on the ground, just as the local government chairman is in charge of his local government and able to make reasonable decisions when it comes to issue of local government. But here it's not just about the economy. There can be a gradual, just like the federal government have done. Initially in some states it was total lockdown, but the federal government has gradually opened up the space, allowing the economy to thrive in certain states like in Lagos, Ogun State, and the FCT. I believe that such will also happen in the states. The state government, we also want to do that to make sure the economy is open up. But my challenge is that the issue of congregation, I don't have any problem with opening up of the economy. Of course, definitely we have to open up one day. But the issue at stake now is that gathering, people gathering. Mike, as we've always said, don't forget that one of the cases in how this thing spread in South Korea was because of a woman that just went to church. And because of that, you saw the level at which the virus spread. So if you are talking of opening up economy and allow people to move around, are you ready to be able to handle the situations that we are? Let's take for Kano, for example. There was a serious issue at a point where a lot of people were dying and people didn't even know why they were dying and how they were dying. And we gave it all sorts of things and correlation and the rest of it until we start doing what's supposed to do and the rest of them. And that is happening. Look at Borno State that has just opened and asked people to go to mosque also. If that virus or that enters any of the IDP, then we're going to have serious problems.
Okay, we have to leave you here now. Thank you very much, Chris Kehinde Nwandu. I am sure the Doma people in Benue would like to give you a chieftaincy title for your for how you look. Thank you so much for your time. Let's head to the paper stands now, see what the headlines across Nigeria are this morning. And I have with me on Skype the CEO of CKN News, Chris Kehinde Nwandu. Chris, it's good to have you join me right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Great. Now, let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. Excuse me. Daily Trust says governors defy experts, warning, and lift ban on worship centers and avoid congregation to witness another Salah for the government saying this. And JNI advises Muslims to observe Eid at home and churches to resume on Sunday. That's Daily Trust. News Direct, COVID-19, Nigeria heading towards economic recession. Finance Minister saying this, and the economy could shrink as much as 3.9% in 2020, and states to get $1.5 billion from the World Bank. Right, my guest certainly will be talking about this. Nigeria's economy, as we're going to Daily Times now. Nigeria's economy heading towards a recession. Ahmed says COVID-19 pandemic has negatively impacted crude oil prices, Federation's revenue, and states to get 1.5 billion naira from World Bank on economic stimulus to cushion the impact of the pandemic. You'll find all that on the front page of the Daily Times. Leadership newspaper is next now. Eid al-Fitr. Federal government states at loggerheads over opening of prayer ground, and states are endangering the aged, sick others. And that's the PTF saying this, and insists that chloroquine not certified for COVID-19 treatment. And GNI backed Sultan asks Muslims to pray at home. And 50% of coronavirus deaths occur at home, says Ehaniri, that's the Minister of Health there. From the leadership, let's go to national economy. On COVID-19, states to share World Bank's 540 billion naira fiscal relief package. Recession inevitable, the federal government is saying this. And the NEC as NEC to work with the COVID-19 PTF on reopening of the economy. Okay, and then the blueprint is the last paper we're looking at this morning, Eid al-Fitr, conflicting signals over mode of worship. The NSCIA, JNI order prayer at home and go home after 1 hour, 1 hour prayer. Ganduje is saying this, and Kano, Jigawa, Bauchi, Yobe, Gombe, Borno, others differ on this. And prayers to be observed within 30 minutes, okay, and Kaduna to strictly enforce lockdown. All right, these are some of the, and federal government declares Monday, Tuesday public holidays, and Southwest wants mosques reopened. All right, these are some of the headlines you see on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper. Certainly, governors of various states across the country differing on how to open the economy, especially for open your states for prayer, for the Salah prayer. All right, Chris, let me bring you in here on the story on the front page of the News Direct. Nigeria heading towards economic recession. The finance minister is saying this. You recall that several months and several years now, Nigerians have been saying we need to diversify. We need to diversify so that when there is a pressure on Nigeria from the global oil side, since the country relies on oil, so that there are shock absorbers here and there. Now, we are faced with this reality now. Certainly, the pandemic is taking a toll on oil prices. It's taking a toll on reserves for almost all countries of the world. In fact, all countries of the world, one way or the other. But what do you make of this?
Yes, Mike. For me, it is a matter of reality check for us. Unfortunately, it's not only Nigeria, across the globe. Practically every country is going. There's no way so many countries will go into recession because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So many, even in Europe, in Asia, and other African countries, most countries are already into recession. But to make it worse for us is, just as rightly said, our dependence on oil as a major source of revenue, with over close to 90% of our revenue coming from oil, which is why most of us in the past have been saying that it is right time for us to be able to diversify our economy so that we can look at other sectors. And the government, to some extent, especially in the area of agriculture, have been trying best they could under the circumstances, although it has not been good enough. There are areas where we can be able to make so much money. I'm looking at the area of oil, in the area of, I'm talking of mining, sorry. In the area of mining, there are a lot. There's practically no state in Nigeria that doesn't have one mineral or the other. We're talking of gold, we are talking of oil minerals in practically all the states. So if you go to Jos, if you go to even Osun, in the east, we have coal, and so many others. Then talking of agriculture too, we have at the point where the highest in terms of cassava and palm oil across in the whole world. Nigeria was noted for that, but we've taken the back seat. So this is reality check for us, and I think the government should be more creative now to realize that at any given point in time, anything can happen, because any little shock that we have in the oil market always affects us. It came down as little as about close to about $18 per barrel when we predicated our budget in about, I think, about $55 per barrel. So that in itself has been seeing us adjusting and readjusting. Now you realize that despite the fact, from all indication, the COVID-19 pandemic may last for about 2 years. So that means we're also going to be having serious problems. So it's now for us to put on our thinking cap. And I also think this is time for us to also rejig our constitution to allow the states to tap into the various mineral resources within their states, and we probably now pay some level of revenue to the federal government. We have to diversify. The federal government cannot do it all. There is no way they can do it all.
All right. As it is right now, one of the very challenging issue is the population growth. But a lot of economists will say, certainly, we're supposed to use it to our advantage. Population is nothing bad. It is just that it puts more burden on the government when things are not going well. Now, for instance, population growth in Nigeria is on the average of 3% annually. We remember UNICEF had put out a report that on the 1st of January this year, about 25 babies were born. If you do the calculation and you do all the mathematics, it means by the first quarter of 2020, would have had more than 1.2 million babies in Nigeria. If you have to multiply that, you see how that goes. How does the issue of population compound this situation we have right now?
Mike, on a lighter note, I think that we might exceed that estimate by the end of the year. Don't forget that most people we are at home for about how many weeks now, and if you understand what I mean. So that means that our projection, these people were restricted from moving around, and so they take so much pleasure in being at home. So we're going to have an increase. But as you rightly said, that's supposed to be a plus. Because when you look at countries like China and India with very high population, one of the advantages they have is their population, and they're putting that to effective use. And China and India have really embraced technology. So that in itself is driving the economy. And that is why you're also seeing that a high rate of revenue coming to them. So population growth is not much of a problem. But ability to be able to harness that and be able to use it effectively for national growth is the main issue. So I think we should be able to harness that. But my problem, Mike, is that if you look at indices starting us on the trace, the level of employment in Nigeria is very, very high. When you also look at indices of the poorest of the poor, Nigeria is way, way up there. So it's not just a population, but the level of living of the average Nigeria is dropping by the day, and something has to be done. So that is why, even despite all the efforts being made by government to keep people at home during this period of pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, Nigerians still can stay at home because most of them make their hair from daily, make money daily. So if they don't go out daily, then the possibility of them having something to eat becomes a problem. So I think that what we should be doing is looking at the SMEs, which is the highest employer of labor in Nigeria, and make sure that they grow and so that we're able to take in more people. But we can also do this when we look at the political nature of our power. The power system over the years, we're talking about this, but it seems to be, it is even getting worse by the day. I know the beginning of this regime at about 2015, there was that promise that there's going to be an increase in both generation and distribution of power in Nigeria. But I have not seen that happen in the past 4-5 years. Instead, we are having a lot of shutdown and the rest of them. That is not going to help the economy at all. So I think the government, those within the economic think tank, headed by the Vice President, Osinbajo, should be able to rethink, and let's look at a possibility of diversifying the economy and making sure that Nigerians are out of the economy.
All right. Kehinde Nwandu, thank you so much for your time on the program.